Okay, so now I'm switched into teaching mode, and I invited you to join me in this video. If you watched the previous video, I talked to you about what is therapeutic writing, some of the benefits, why I'm doing it, and invited you to then follow me to this video so that we can talk about the actual process and do our first writing prompts. Now, a lot of what we're going to be doing is based on the work of James Pennebaker and his book, Expressive Writing, Words That Heal. And I will include a link to the book if you want to check it out, as well as an article that will give you some more information about the benefits of it. All that to be said, let's get into the actual process. So, when it comes to this type of therapeutic writing, as I said before, we're going to be writing 4 consecutive days for about 20 minutes a day. And what are we going to be writing about? So for Pennebaker, he says that we should be writing about the things that keeps us up at night. What are the things that we've been working through? The things that have been kind of playing in the back of our minds, that kind of thing. Write to learn where you need to go. So these things that you maybe have suppressed, you've tried to avoid thinking about it and doing any real work on it, let your mind guide you. Let your mind guide you into where it needs to be and the things it needs to process. So don't try to fight it or you tell yourself where you want to go. Just kind of go with the process, go with the flow, and let yourself lead you to where you need to be in this process. And write about issues that are relevant to here and now. Maybe there were things that happened in your childhood or 20 years ago or 10 years ago, but they're not really affecting you right now. But what is it that you're dealing with right now? It could be something from childhood that's still leaking into your today, but what is it that's pressing on you today? That's where your focus should be. And write about, again, those traumas that are present in your mind. There may have been other things that have taken place, but he's not asking you necessarily to just dig up things, everything that's ever happened to you, anything bad that's ever happened, but what's been present with you, what's been sticking with you and affecting you currently. That's where you're going to see the most productiveness from the writing. So that's what we're going to be writing about. When should you write? When is the best time to write? Um, Now, he recommends the beginning of the weekend, and really, he's just talking about when you have a lot of free time, when you're not really being pressed to do a lot of things, you have a lot going on. So, ideally, at a time when you don't have too much going on. I know that some people, you work, you have kids, you have other side activities, it really doesn't feel like there's a lot of time. And all we're asking for is 20 minutes. When is your best 20 minutes? Is it just before you go to bed, or is it um, during your lunch break? Whatever is that best period of time when you have not just time to write, but time to process. And I would add to that also time to kind of prepare to write. Ideally, that is it. So if it can be during the weekend when you have more free time or whatever your days off are, great. If you don't have that luxury, then whatever is a good time where you have time to write and then process it, that would be ideal. Um, so yeah, so when you have time to self-reflect, so you just don't want to just write and put it away, but you want some time, and it may be digging up some emotional things. So you want time to sit with those emotions. It's not really the time to write if you have to go to a party afterwards. It's probably going to not be a lot of fun in those first few minutes or hour right after you've done this type of writing. So sometime when you can kind of reflect and really reap the benefits of it. And whatever you decide is the best time, try to be consistent. There are studies that talk about the benefits of writing at a consistent time. Again, that may not be ideal. So the more important thing is to write. But if you can't do it consistently due to your schedule, um, do the best you can. That's all I'll say. This is not something that should be creating a lot of stress in you, just trying to figure out when to do it. So if you find yourself stressing over when to do it and all those types of things, just let that go and just figure out what's going to work best for you. And that's going to be different for each of us. And then added to that is, when is the best time to write? whenever you need to. There may be times in your life where you're not really wrestling with anything, so that maybe you don't need to do this process. Um, and there may be times when there's a lot going on and this would be very beneficial for you. So if everything is going great, no need. Though some people may like to continue to write, sort of like as a maintenance. I've worked through this, I'm doing good, but just to make sure everything is still running well, just like an oil change, just to make sure everything's doing well, I'll do another session just to keep the engine running smoothly. You can do it that way as well. Again, you have a lot of freedom here, a lot of control. So do what works best for you. Where should you write? Next question. Where should you write? Um, and in the book, Pennybaker talks a lot about creating your own healing space as well as creating your own healing ritual or writing ritual. So whatever happened, whatever trauma, whether it is abuse or an abusive relationship or trauma of war or lots of things can traumatize us. And in that trauma, you probably didn't have a lot of control, but this is an area where you do have a lot of control. You can design your own space. And when I say design, I'm not talking about spending money, but create the space that will work best for you, a space of healing. So you don't want it to be very a stressful space, but someplace where you can kind of be to yourself, be alone with your thoughts, not worry too much about interruption and distraction getting in the way, but also that has that kind of healing quality to it. So probably not a place where you work. So me as a writer, I typically write in this area right here. It's a nice comfy couch. I can watch TV. I can look around and do whatever. But for this type of writing, this reflective writing, I don't write here because this is kind of a work area for me. I have another space that's much more calming that I would write in. So to me, someplace calming. Um, Now, if you have other people in the house and maybe it's just not that conducive for you to find a space in your home, it could be that you write in the car. It could be that you go to Starbucks and write, or your local coffee shop, or in the park, or someplace soothing there. Ideally, it would be the beach for me. When I get my beach house, that's where I'll be doing my writing. But for now, my calming space is my bedroom. I've set it up in a way that's very calming. But whatever works for you. What's a place of healing, a quiet, comfortable place, a place where you feel safe to kind of unpack and explore? That's what we're thinking about here. But I also add to this, think about all of your senses. Probably not taste. That's probably the only one I don't have on this list, but sights, like what visually are you looking at? So I again say I would not recommend having distractions like TV or things that are going to pull you out, or work, or a cluttered space that's going to add stress or distraction to you. Smells, I think smells are like the underrated relaxation thing. I love scents like candles. I just bought this new diffuser which just permeates the air with lavender scents. So I'm big on smells. Or it could be outdoor plants or things like that. Touch sensation. Maybe it's a nice comforter or blanket that you wrap around yourself that makes you feel calm and secure. Sounds like soothing music or quiet, the absence of sound could also be beneficial. So be thinking about that. And we'll talk about that in later videos as well. What will your space look like where you're going to write? This is also going to be dependent on what else is happening in your world. Like I said, if it's not conducive to write at home, if you're going to be writing at work or in the car, because that's the place you won't be interrupted. What can you do in those spaces to make it more calming and add that sense of security where you feel like you can open up and express and not worry about people interrupting you and disrupting your flow. So think about that. Where should you write? And on top of that, self-care, self-care, self-care is key. Remember, the whole point of this is just to move to another level of healing. So to do that, just like anything, just like a broken bone, sometimes you may it may hurt to get to the healing step. There may be some wounding that happens. So you want to be mindful of that and have a plan of self care. I say before, during, and after. Before you begin this process, um, and this goes back to what Pennybacker says about having a ritual, and that this will be a routine for you. Like for me, it's having some time of prayer and meditation before I begin writing to put myself in a calm place in an open space. So maybe you could pray or meditate and light a candle, something like that, that'll put you in that space, or put on certain music. And again, you're going to have your space. So the during, so while you're writing in a place that makes you feel comfortable and safe. And then afterwards, what are you going to do to take care of yourself? You may not be in a space after you do this writing to go and cook dinner. Though for some of you, maybe that is the most healing thing for you in that moment, is to cook for somebody or cook for yourself. But think about self-care. How do you take care of yourself? For some people, it may be to take a nice bath, or a nice hot shower. It could be to take a good walk or exercise. So there are lots of options. I wouldn't recommend necessarily, this would be my old go-to, is like a good uh, bowl of ice cream and cake, because we don't want to heal ourselves in one area and add injury by putting on a lot of weight or bringing on medical conditions by that. So if you do feel like you need to eat, it's highly recommended by other scientists that you eat a protein, not carbs, because proteins have a reparative quality to them, repairing the body. So if you do feel like I need to eat something, then think about what you could eat, what protein you could eat, and that not go into sugars, which really can affect your blood sugar and make you crash and all those things, and affect your emotions. So have a plan for your self-care, and I encourage you to develop a routine or a ritual to that process, your before, your during, and your aftercare. Okay, now, so for the general writing instructions, like we said, he's encouraging 4 consecutive days of 20 minutes. If you want to do more than 20 minutes, go for it, but 15 to 20 minutes ideally, no less than 15 minutes, um, in a perfect world. But again, if things happen and it's just not conducive for you, do what works for you. Um, 4 days, 20 minutes. That's the goal. That's what we're working for. And then you take a break, and then we can begin this again next week. Um, in the book, he talks about processing. I'm not going to get into the processing because I didn't want to read the processing portion of the book until I actually did my first prompt. I didn't want that to kind of affect my thinking as I'm doing the writing. So I didn't want that to kind of taint me. I want to write fresh. So I'm going to write, and then I'm going to read about the processing, and we'll talk about that in the next video. Um, you can write about the same thing each of the 4 days, or you can write about different events. It's up to you. You may find it helpful to just kind of get it out there and tell the story the first time, and maybe look at it from a different perspective. But know that you don't have to write about the same thing each of the 4 days. And once you start writing, write continuously. I recommend set your phone for 20 minutes and just write and keep writing. And if you run out of things to say, then rewrite what you just wrote. So if you wrote for 10 minutes and you ran out of what to say, then take what you wrote and just recopy that for 10. Just get into that habit of that 20-minute writing period. Um, and write only for yourself. So this is not to be shared. This is not something that you're going to share with your family. Um, I recommend using a notebook or something. I'm going to pull mine up for you. This is just a simple journal I got from Ross. Ross is not paying me, but it's nice thick paper. It says blessed. So every time you can see blessed. There we go. Blessed. Whenever I see it, I know I'm blessed. Um, I like paper writing. I think when you're doing this kind of writing, now this is just my opinion. You can take it or leave it. I feel like writing with pen and paper or pencil and paper, it's helpful for therapeutic writing. When I do typing on the computer, Um, I feel like I'm tapping into the other side of my brain, the more technical side of my brain. And because writing script or writing with a paper, pen and paper is more natural, you don't have to remember where the keys are. You don't have to deal with computers and technology. So you can kind of flow. When I first started writing books, I wrote everything down in a notebook and then I would type it. As I got better as a typist, I now just write on the computer. So you may find that's the way to do it for you. That's cool. You can do it on your computer, or you may just get a notebook and write in the notebook whatever you do. Um, if you don't live by yourself, if you're concerned about maybe someone getting their hands on what you write, um, then get rid of it when you're done with it. Tear it up. You can make that part of the ritual is the tearing up or the burning of it, or the delete, hitting the delete button, whatever. But this is only to be for you. And that frees you to say whatever you want because no one is going to read this. No one is going to read it. And then Penny Baker adds the flip out rule. So if whatever you get a prompt, something, the prompt is the thing that you're going to be writing about. If this is something that's going to trigger you or cause you to like flip out, for lack of, that's what he calls it, cause you to flip out, you don't have to write it. So again, no one is forcing you to do this. If you just say, wow, that's too deep, I can't even go there, then write whatever else is in your heart at that time. So don't don't not write, but you don't have to write about whatever that the prompt is for that day. We don't want to re-traumatize you or add more trauma to you. We're just trying to help process. And if going through this particular subject matter is going to be too much, it's okay. And our bodies have a way of letting us know, hey, we're not ready for this right now. And listen to your body. If you're not ready, set that aside. Down the line, you will be ready, and then you can write about it at that time. But at this time, if it's not for you, this is something that's going to trigger you or cause you to flip out, as he says, then don't do it. Write about something else. Okay? What about after? Once you've done the prompts, what now? Um, it's understandable that you may feel a little down, a little sad, depressed because you've just unpacked something that was very sad or traumatic. So you may find for a few minutes or an hour or a couple of hours afterwards that you're a little bit down, kind of like watching a sad movie, he says. And you just kind of feel down. You probably again want to kind of stay to yourself for a little bit, but I would say just pay attention and be plugged in to yourself. If you notice lack of sleep, if you notice nightmares, loss of appetite, other things like that, then maybe you need to talk to somebody. Um, and there are lots of resources out there for mental health professionals that can help you. And there's no shame in that. This is a process that will get you to a higher level so that you don't experience those feelings. But sometimes you have to go through the valley to get to the other side. So it's okay. Generally speaking, if you're doing the self-care before and during and after, this will be a slight dip in your emotions, and then you find yourself rebounding. Most of us are survivors. We know how to survive. We know how to care for ourselves and get through things. So this is no different than that. But just be aware that when you write about trauma, you probably aren't ready to throw a party afterwards. Though you could be. That's great if you are. But just know that it could be that you find yourself a little sad. Um, so what is the prompt for today? What are we going to be writing about? I'm just going to read it to you, and I pulled it up on my tablet because he said a lot, and I wanted to make sure, in addition to the prompts, he added some additional things, and I wanted to make sure that I hit everything that he said, even though I didn't actually type all it up because it was a lot. So this is the prompt that he says for day one. Today, it may be beneficial to simply write about the event itself, how you felt when it was occurring, and how you feel now, just to get started. Um, and to that, he adds, as you write about this upheaval, You might begin to tie it to other parts of your life. For example, how is it related to your childhood and your relationships with your parents and your close family? How is the event connected to the people you have most loved or feared or been angry with? Make those connections if you see them. How is this upheaval or trauma related to your current life? If it's something that happened years ago, how is it relevant today? Why is it still coming up today? What brings it up today? Above all, how is this event related to who you have been in the past and who you would like to be in the future and who you are now? So that's a lot. This is just a simple prompt right here, but added to that, just things to be thinking about as you process that one event, that one traumatic event. Um, just things to keep in mind as you go through that. And you, like I said, things may be coming up for you. Just follow it. Just follow those. Don't try to shut it down again unless it's causing you to go too far than where you want to go right now. But just kind of allow the mind to lead you, allow your heart to lead you, um, and see where you end up. That's all we're going to do for today. Um, so when I get done talking to you guys, I'm going to do the prompt. I'm going to write for 20 minutes. And then tomorrow, I'm going to process this with you guys and talk about some of the steps in processing. um, so if you're ready, let's go. Let's do this, right? I don't want you to think of this as a negative experience, but be excited about the healing that can come through this. Being able to walk through these experiences and know, first of all, you already survived this. This is over. This is past. So whatever it is or whatever feelings it stirs up in you, know that you've already been through this. You've already survived it. You are an overcomer. And so now we're just trying to make sense of it. We're try to process it, make sense of it so we can put it to rest and you can go on to be free. I titled this whole series of videos "Writing to Be Free" because I think that's so important. Um, the whole benefit of this is to gain freedom, to gain clarity, so that you're no longer bound by this, whatever this thing was, that it no longer keeps you up at night. It no longer affects your relationship. It no longer prevents you from going after your dreams. You're free. So, how do we get there? We're going to write our way to freedom. That's what we're going to do. So, I will be back tomorrow having written my prompts. And if you've done it, feel free to leave me a note and tell me that you're doing it. And we can talk about the process and the emotions tomorrow. Bye.